Hey, this is Andrew, and I am bringing you another Keyforge set review. Today we're going to be walking through all the Untamed cards in Age of Ascension. Finally, then we have two more after that. And Untamed is real interesting in Age of Ascension. I feel like they've shifted so much in terms of what they are good at. I feel like, D still kind of does its thing. Bromnar actually still does its thing, but with a few different, sometimes better tools, etc. But Untamed is really quite different. So we'll get started going through there. When I open a pack and I see Untamed on the deck, I'm hoping that I'll get some Amber Burst. I'm hoping that I'll get some creatures, maybe able to flood the board with creatures, some way to recur those creatures, get them back on the board, etc. I'm looking for recursion in general. I'm looking for hazardous and assault keywords. Untamed creatures really like those. Some skirmish too. I'm looking for cards that boost the power of my creatures. I'm looking for cards like Key Charge and Shota Hazari, well, those two cards that let me forge for 7. I'm looking for some artifact control, and I'm looking for some direct damage, and I'm also looking for some soft control in the form of occasionally stuns and also being able to exhaust enemy creatures. So I'm not necessarily expecting to be able to wipe the board of enemy creatures, although there are combos that let you do that. But I'm also looking for ways that I can just make those creatures not able to do stuff. Okay. What would I hope to see next to Untamed on a deck? This one, I actually think I'd really like to see Logos. Untamed has a bunch of cards that like to combo with a full hand of cards that'll go with them or with certain effects. Full Moon comes to mind. And being able to archive those for an Untamed power turn is a really strong ability. So having Logos be able to manage my hand and my deck and my archives is gonna boost the power level of the Untamed set. My favorite combo in Untamed in AOA is Amber Spine Mongrel with Talega. This sets up a situation where your opponent just is gonna struggle to deal with it without giving you a bunch of Amber. I also, I've had a couple decks where I've been able to get Amber Spine Mongrel with Way of the Porcupine, effectively making Amber Spine Mongrel hazardous 6. That's also a pretty crazy setup. Obviously, it can still be dealt with direct damage, but it sets up a situation where your opponent is going to really struggle, certainly to fight it to death, because creatures will just die before they can touch it. If I could pick a Maverick to have in Untamed, I think it would be Vizima Think Drone from Mars. That's a card that I totally underestimated at first, but its ability to throw stuff in your archives so you can play it out later is really strong. I like having it in Mars next to Untamed because I can take some of the Untamed creatures that have strong play effects, put them back in my archives, and bring them out later. And there are a bunch of those. And if I could have a legacy card, it would be Witch of the Eye. It's just such a strong card, and being able to have it in this set would be super cool. There are other cards that kind of take the place of it, for sure, but that ability just to do that every turn is so good. Okay, let's get into the cards now. Let's start with, we'll start with the commons, as we do, and work through those. So we start with Darna. Darna is a 2-power elf witch, and when you play Darna, you gain an Amber for each damaged friendly creature. So this is nice to have later in the game when you can, maybe you have a bunch of damaged creatures, you can drop her on the board and just gain a bunch of Amber. Even gaining 1 or 2 is solid. And then her Reap effect is to heal 2 damage from a friendly creature, which is pretty cool. And yeah, the art is just so good on this. I love the, stitching up the poor little bear there. So sweet. So anyway, yep, when she reaps, you heal 2 damage from a friendly creature. And that I don't care about so much. But occasionally it's been good. Just depends on your situation. Okay. Next up we have Dusk Witch. Dusk Witch is a 1-power human witch with Omega and Elusive, and it says your creatures enter play ready. So this is an incredibly strong effect, very, very strong. Your creatures enter play ready. If you can put this on the board and then have a turn after that, I think it's pretty likely you're going to win the game at that point. Not guaranteed, but pretty likely. Now, obviously, Dusk Witch is easy to kill because she's only 1 power, but that elusive helps. And so if you can get into a situation where your opponent only has 1 creature on the board or creatures in different houses, then this can help. That can help, and you have a chance at the Dusk Witch surviving. There is a lot of spot damage, so any just damaged plinks are going to take the witch out right away. That's okay. One way to think about this, and I think this applies to a lot of other cards as well, but really, really very much applies to Dusk Witch. It's tempting to think, oh, this is 1 power, it'll never have a game impact. And that's not the right way to think about it. If you drop this on the board and your opponent has to choose a different house than they were going to in order to get that 1 damage on Dusk Witch, you accomplished something. You got something done. So I really think Dusk Witch is never a dead card unless you have to. It's a very strong card, and it'll force your opponent into making suboptimal choices. The things that, well, I guess optimal with Dusk Witch on the table, but choices that wouldn't have been optimal otherwise. And that's a win even if you don't get that effect. And if you do get that effect, then just watch out. All right, next up we have Fang House, which is a 3-power beast with Assault 3 and Hazardous 3. This is another card I thought wrong about early on. I thought this isn't that good. The Assault 3 really is good because there are a lot of creatures either that are just 3 power and you can take them out without Fang House taking damage, or that have elusive and now you're able to take them out without even having to deal with the elusive. So that's a really strong effect for fighting, right? It's effectively like a better Niffle almost, except it doesn't ignore taunt. But dealing with elusive creatures, this is a better Niffle. And then, well, Niffle wasn't ever that good, but this is like actually pretty good. And then the Hazardous 3 makes it really hard for your opponent to deal with. So this is not a reaping engine, but it's a really good board control engine. Full Moon. Full Moon never does what I want it to do. So Full Moon is an action, you play it, and then for the remainder of the turn you gain an amber each time you play a creature. And yeah, maybe you get like 3 amber from this, and in that case that is a fantastic turn. So if you can play this and it results in you getting 3 amber, great. More likely it's like 1, maybe 2, and it's so tempting to hold it and too long, and bad stuff can happen. So I kind of have just, as a rule, I'll tend to discard this rather than hold on and hope. There are times where maybe you get a Glimmer and pull a Full Moon back out for a power turn that way, but then you can get to use it on the Glimmer. I don't know. It never works out the way I wish, which is okay, but I certainly like Hunting Witch a lot better. And anyway, that's Full Moon though. It can be quite good. It struggles to get that actual combo off. If you can, again, you get it with logos or something like that, and some archive, then maybe you have a better situation for it. All right, speaking of Glimmer, Glimmer is a 1-power fairy with alpha, and its play effect is return a card from your discard pile to your hand. I love the art on this as well, just so cool. And just going away with the amber there, although it doesn't give you an amber, that's okay. But that effect is very strong. You play it, you pull a card from your discard pile to your hand. Sometimes I'll pull, play Glimmer, pull out regrowth, play regrowth, get the amber from that, and pull a creature out. Play the creature. Really like getting this with Dusk Witch because it's a good way to, this is alpha, and then I get the Dusk Witch, play whatever else I want, put Dusk Witch back on the table. Yeah, I'm really pretty much always happy to see this. And this, like the Darna, strong play effect. So if you can, there are lots of ways to cycle it, is what I'm trying to say. You can, obviously if you have things that archive creatures in play, then that's great, but there's cards like Song of Spring that'll shuffle it back into your deck as well. And I've had turns where I play this and Song of Spring and just shuffle it back in on the same turn because I'd rather draw it again than even reap with it. And it's 1 power. How likely is it that you're going to get to reap with it? Okay, so Glimmer's awesome. Next we have Grovekeeper, who is a 3-power human witch that at the end of your turn gives each neighboring creature a +1 power counter. In Call of the Archons, plus power was not that big of a deal. It's a bigger deal since Grunt Buggy exists in AOA. So I think the possibility for this to be really good is there. And and this is really nice to put next to some of your weaker creatures. Maybe you have something, awesome that's 2 power with elusive. You put the Grovekeeper next to it. By the end of that turn, it's 3 power with elusive. If that goes on a couple turns, suddenly it's 5 power with elusive and like really difficult to deal with. So this can balloon pretty quickly. Key Charge. This is a classic. It's an action. You play it, you lose an amber, and if you do, you can forge a key at current cost. Boom. I think the power level of this has gone down quite a bit in AOA compared to Coda. In AOA, you had Hunting Witch, you had Dust Pixie, you had Fuzzy Gruen, you had Fertility Chant. These are all cards that did huge amber bursts on your turn. Is Fuzzy Gruen still around? I'll have to check later. Anyway, the others aren't. So you have all these cards that give huge amber bursts on your turn, and then you have a way to immediately convert that into a key. In this set, there just isn't as much of that. And in fact, Talega is still around, but that generates amber on your opponent's turn. Amber Spine Mongrel generates amber on your opponent's turn. Really, a lot of the really gonna generate a lot of amber stuff happens on your opponent's turn. There's less of it on your turn. Again, there's still full moon, but do you actually get to pull off full moon? I don't know. So I think this is a significantly less powerful card in AOA than it was in Call of the Archons. Doesn't mean it's a bad card. It still has potential to win games, to change the landscape, but it's just not as critical. If I were playing a sealed event in Call of the Archons and I pull a deck with Key Charge, that's to me a strong reason why I might just want to keep and use the deck based on that, as long as everything else is reasonable. In AOA, I just don't think that's quite the case. So it's also, nerfed by cards like Grunt Buggy that increase the key costs, and there's more of that in AOA. All right, Knox is a 3-power beast, but it gets +3 power for each neighbor it has, so it's potentially power 9 if it's not on a flank. That's pretty cool. That's it, but it's pretty cool. I really like getting this with Brobnar because there are really great combos you can get there. Marmo Swarm is a 2-power beast, but it's +1 power for each amber in your pool. I think the weirdest thing that happens is you get these situations where you have like an 8-power, 9-power, 10-power Marmo Swarm. You forge, and your Marmo Swarm dies from damage that it had sitting around or something. That can be pretty interesting. My daughters are passing me notes there. Okay. Next up, we have Persistence Hunting, which is a An action, it has a bonus amber, and when you play it, you choose a house, you exhaust each enemy creature of the chosen house. So it's like Nocturnal Maneuvers from Call of the Archons, but like a cross between that and Blinding Light. It's great because it only affects enemy creatures, so it's not getting in your way, and it means that house is effectively turned off for your opponent for a turn. Pretty good. I'm happy when I see this. Next we have Regrowth. This is a classic from Call of the Archons. A Regrowth is an action that gains you a bonus amber and then returns a creature from your discard pile to your hand. Solid. Usually I want to get an untamed creature with that so I can get it on the board right away. Once in a while you'll have something just like really powerful and worth keeping around for a turn. Usually I'd rather grab an untamed creature and not clog up my hand. Rustnar, 4-power beast insect with a fight effect. And its fight effect is destroy an artifact. If that artifact had an amber bonus, you gain that much amber. I've seen this come up so much. I mean, it is a common, but I feel like so many of my Untamed decks have had Rustnar, and it's great. In Call of the Archons, we had Grasping Vines. Rustnar is nice because you can repeat it. It can combo with other houses. You know, if you're in Brobnar, you can use a Gauntlet or Relentless Assault, something like that, to get to use the Rustnar on your Brobnar turns. So really nice. The weird thing is there's no May there, so if the only artifact in play is yours, you have to destroy that. So in that case, I might rather fight with something else and reap with the Rustnar. Can get into a weird situation. Although sometimes you don't care about your artifact and you're just happy to get that amber, and that's fine. This can also be pretty clutch. I think so. The most interesting situations I've ended up with are when I have Rustnar with a grunt buggy, and it ends up making sense. You know, I don't want to destroy the grunt buggy, but then at the very end of the game, sometimes it does make sense. You know, if you're ahead, you're about to forge your third key, you have you have amber, but you're worried your opponent will play a bunch of big creatures. Use the Rustnar, destroy your own grunt buggy, and boom, the way is paved for you to forge. So weird stuff can happen. Yeah, okay, Save the Pack. Classic, another classic. It's an action that says when you play it, you destroy each damaged creature, and then you gain 1 chain. This, I think, is actually better in this set because there's a little more damage spray, especially there's a little more damage spray that only affects your opponent's creatures. So, whereas in Call of the Archons, more stuff would hit both sides, and in this set, a lot of stuff only hits your opponent's side. It's interesting how they did that, because I feel like that is actually the less complicated way to think about damage spray cards, is if they only affect your opponent. That's kind of what people expected. I saw a lot of people be surprised. I play Poison Wave and it hurts my own creatures. This is what? And, you know, cards like They're Everywhere just make a lot more sense. They're a lot easier for people to grok. Although I do think it was probably the right call to put more of the equal spray cards in the first set, just because it got people used to the idea that, hey, there are there are cards in this game with powerful effects, but they affect both players equally. Anyway, sorry, that's weird tangent. But yes, with They're Everywhere, this is amazing because you just board wipe your opponent. All right. Song of Spring is an action with bonus amber, and when you play it, you shuffle any number of friendly untamed creatures from your hand, discard pile, or battle line back into your deck. Again, this is great with these creatures with strong play effects. It's also good, you know, if you just need to get back your Rustnar or something like that, your Dusk Witch, boom, it's back in your deck. It is interesting. This can apply to creatures on the board. So, yeah, those ones that have strong play effects, you might want to cycle. And even from your hand, that's interesting. I haven't ever had a time where that made sense to do that I can think of, except I think I have one deck that has 2 Bumble Birds. I had them both on the same turn, so I played the Song of Spring and shuffled them both back into my deck, I think. Anyway, so there's potential there. but mostly you care about the battle line and discard pile. And yeah, it's great. Tantadlin is a 9-power tree, and but it only deals 2 damage when it's fighting. But it has this powerful fight effect. You discard a random card from your opponent's archives. That's really nice and disruptive. You know, it's weird because in a lot of games it won't matter, but when it matters, boy, does it matter. When you're playing against Mars and you're getting cards back into your hand that you can play, when you're playing against Logos and you're ruining their plans, it really matters. So otherwise, where I would be most happy to see this card is, again, wow, I picked Logos as the combo house, but I do like Untamed with Brobnar. Tantadlin's great with Grunt Buggy, right? Or with Might Makes Right. So I do like to see Tantadlin in Brobnar decks, typically. All right, and last common here, we have They're Everywhere, which is an action. It gives you a bonus amber. It deals 2 damage to each enemy flank creature and 1 damage to each enemy creature that's not on a flank. You know, this is interesting. I've played this slightly wrong, I think, up till now. And I'm going to an event today. I'm going to have to be careful about this. Because you deal 2 damage to each enemy flank creature, it's possible if they die, then now your opponent has 2 new flank creatures. They don't take damage. And then in the second sentence happens, deal 1 damage to each enemy creature not on a flank. They wouldn't take damage. So I'm gonna, if this comes up at the event today, I'm gonna watch for it. These actually should be 2 separate instances of dealing damage, and destruction happens in between them. So so it is possible, if the flank creatures are killed, that then the new flank creatures just wouldn't take any damage from this card. So watch out for stuff like that. I hadn't thought about that until just now, so probably played it wrong at some point. All right, let's jump into uncommons, and we start with Amberspine Mongrel. I love this card. I love throwing this card on the table. It's so cool. Okay, well, let me say what it does. So it's a 3-power beast, and it has Hazardous 3. So before it's when it's being attacked, before the fight, you deal 3 damage to the attacking creature. And after your opponent uses a creature to reap, you gain an amber. So, and there's so much in AOA around, you know, reap punishment. And a lot of it, most of it is when an enemy creature reaps, stun it, or when a creature reaps, stun it. There's a when a creature reaps, sacrifice it. Blood Imp, is that it? Bloodshard Imp. Merrick the Marked. He is it Merrick? I think of somebody else. So Barrister Joya says you can't reap. Is it Merrick or is it somebody else? Sir Marrows, Sir Marrows, who says when your opponent reaps, you capture it. But this is so cool because it's like, no, you can reap all you want, and I'm just gonna get a ton of benefit. I'm gonna reap the benefits. So I love that. It's super cool, and it's actually somewhat challenging to kill. So, or at least costly to kill. So I love it. I think it's just a fantastic card. Sorry, I'm gushing, but it's a great card and fun. I just think it makes the game fun in ways that other cards, you know, if you have a board full of stun stuff when it reaps, it's like, oh my goodness, this game is crazy. Orbit of Invidious makes the game different and less fun, right? In some ways, I think it's okay for like a flavor change. But if you were always playing that way, oh my gosh, it would just be a slow grinding game. Amberspine Mongrel is like, it's fine. We're speeding things up. Let's go. I love it. Okay. Bumble Bird is a 1-power beast insect with alpha, so you can only play it at the first thing on your turn. And when you play it, you put 2 +1 power counters on each other friendly untamed creature. That's a mouthful. And it's not that good. It's fine, but I don't love it. The art is fantastic. They really compensated for the card's effect with the art, but the effect is not that impressive. The art is amazing. All right, Camouflage is an upgrade with a bonus amber, and this is the first, we haven't seen any upgrades till now, so it's the first upgrade we've seen. And creatures that are not on a flank cannot fight this creature. Your opponent always has 1 or 2 creatures on a flank, So I don't love this. Like I'm never thrilled to see it. It's fine. It gives you an amber. It maybe makes a card harder to deal with, but just not by that much. And I don't love it. But it's fine. It's not bad. Okay, Shota Hazari is a 3-power human witch. When you play Shota Hazari, you lose an amber. If you do, you may forge a key at current cost. This is a key charge, but as a creature, it's fine. Yeah, totally fine. Again, nerfed in the same way that I think key charge was. Maybe slightly, well, still better. Shota Hazari's always been a little better than key charge because it's a creature, and there are things that it combos with, like Full Moon, Hunting Witch in the old set. That you now have a 3-power creature that you can do stuff with. Regrowth, you can regrowth Shota Hazari, so there are definite. It's better than key charge, but nerfed in much the same way as key charge. Flaxseed is a 4-power fairy. When you play Flaxseed, you gain 2 amber if you control more creatures than your opponent. And there's a chance you do there's a pretty good chance you do if you're in Untamed, because you can, maybe you regrowth something else. You have ways to get creatures back out. And this is like Shota Hazari returning from Call of the Archons. Fogbank also back. Fogbank this is cool art that very, very evocative of some Lord of the Rings battle scenes for me. When you play, so it's an action, it gains you a bonus amber, and when you play it, your opponent cannot use creatures to fight on their next turn. I don't know what else they would use to fight. So far, nothing, but I think sometimes they just word these cards defensively. So anyway, your opponent can't use creatures to fight on their next turn. Grasping Vines is still here. This is why, this plus Rustnar, I think, makes Untamed a pretty good artifact control house. Grasping Vines gives you a bonus amber, it's an action, and when you play it, you return up to 3 artifacts to their owner's hands. And this is fantastic. I think there are 2 ways that people either misplay or just miss opportunities with Grasping Vines. One is anytime you're shoving something back into your opponent's hand that has an amber print on it, you should think carefully about that. Might not be the best move. And the other thing is if you can, let's say you have an Untamed artifact that has an amber printed on it, pop it back into your hand and plop it back down. Usually something from another house, I probably wouldn't want to do that because it's going to clog my hand. However, there are occasionally situations where it makes sense to play this and return an artifact to your hand so it's not on the board during your opponent's turn. Certainly with things like Grunt Buggy or Heart of the Forest, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but with Speed Sigil, it was quite a nice thing to do. There are other artifacts as well. I'm trying to think of one in Age of Ascension that you would want to do that with, and I'm not sure. I would also love to have this in a deck with Sting, because it's a great way to deal with Sting not on a Shadows turn, right? Put it back into your hand on an Untamed turn, forge, plop it back out, gain more amber, take a Shadows turn, sacrifice it. I don't know, there's cool stuff you can do. Alright, Life Web is an action with a bonus amber. When you play it, if your opponent played 3 or more creatures on their previous turn, you steal 2. If you pull that off, that's a 5 amber swing, which is huge. That's why if your opponent played 3 or more creatures is actually quite a steep requirement. But if you just play it and get 1 amber, that's fine. And you can, again, there's lots of nice recursion options. So maybe you do this and then it's sitting there threatening later on. You can Glimmer it or something like that. So good stuff. Mimicry is just the best card. It's so fun. It's so good. It's so good because it's any card. It's any card. It's your opponent's best action card that they've played. That's what it is. Always your opponent's best action card that they've played. It's amazing. Okay, until they cycle their deck, but still. So when you play Mimicry, you treat it as a copy of an action card in your opponent's discard pile. Just amazing. It's so good. So good. Yeah. Nature's Call is an action with a bonus amber. When you play it, you return up to 3 creatures to their owner's hands. Amazing. If you have a Darna and this, and you have some damaged creatures on the board, Darna, Nature's Call, Darna. I mean, whew, so much amber generation. Unfortunately, it doesn't work with Glimmer because Glimmer has the alpha. But I don't know. I think it's a fantastic card. It's a great way to, you're putting creatures back in your opponent's hand, annoying them, clogging up their hand. They have to plop, when they plop the creatures back down, they're going to be exhausted again. This is a great card. And it's a card from Call of the Archons, as is Nepenthe Seed. Nepenthe Seed is an artifact that has Omni, sacrifice Nepenthe Seed, return a card from your discard pile to your hand. So good. It's just very good. This is another copy of your best card, essentially, right? This is, of course, part of the crazy double library access combo, or one version of it. It also it is also an enabler of lots of other things. I mean, just there's lots of great stuff you can do with Nepenthe Seed. Niffle Grounds is an artifact with a bonus amber. Its action, it exhausts to choose a creature, and for the remainder of the turn, that creature loses taunt and elusive. Like, I'm never thrilled to see this, but it sometimes comes in handy. So it's not bad, but like I'd probably rather have a Fang House. Pampaka Inga is a 5-power creature beast. It's a beast. It really is a beast. Creatures to the right of it on the battle line get +2 power. This is amazing if you have a Might Makes Right or Grunt Buggy deck. And just in general, making all these creatures +2 is great. I've had decks with 2 of these, you're now making all these creatures +4. Just bonkers. So I don't know, this is a really great card. I love to see it. And then Pampaka Jaga is the other version here. And trivia, if you weren't, you're probably already aware of this, but in case you weren't, these are in honor of Richard Garfield's twin boys, so that's cute. Anyway, Pampaka Jaga is a 3-power beast with skirmish, and creatures to the left of it on the battle line gain skirmish. So if you have Inga on the left and Jaga on the right, then all your creatures are +2 power and skirmish. Awesome. Now you just need a Dusk Witch and your life is complete. Soldiers to Flowers. I haven't actually gotten a deck with Soldiers to Flowers. This is an interesting one. It's an action with a bonus amber. You purge each untamed creature from each player's discard pile, and for each card purged this way, its owner gains an amber. This is interesting. This is weird. This is a weird card, and I can just see a lot of crazy stuff happening with it. And I really think you just have to think every time you play it about, is this the right thing to do? Obviously, if there's no untamed creatures in anybody's decks, it's just gain an amber, and that's fine. But as soon as you're purging creatures, you need to think hard about whether this is the right play, and it might be, but you have to think about it. And Way of the Porcupine. Way of the Porcupine is an upgrade with a bonus amber, and it gives a creature hazardous 3. That's fantastic. That's a really nice upgrade. All right, finally we're on to the rares. Quick reminder, I think like only 40% of the rares are new cards in AOA, so really most of these should be returning from Call of the Archons, but that's okay, we like it. So I think 8 should be 20 rares, so, right? Yeah, so it'll be like 12 old cards and 8 new ones. Okay, Curiosity. Gains you a bonus amber, it's an action, and you destroy each scientist creature. This is back from Call of the Archons. It's an interesting card, definitely very niche, as rare cards tend to be. Earthbind is an upgrade with a bonus amber, and it says this creature cannot be used unless its controller has discarded a card this turn. So this is one of those upgrades that you want to put on your opponent's card, on your opponent's creature, and it makes it harder for them to use it. So that's cool. That's a new one. Fuzzy Gruen is old. This is still in. Okay, yeah. So that's some amber generation on your turn, but just not that much, you know. Fuzzy Gruen's a 5-power beast. Has 2 bonus amber printed on it, and when you play it, your opponent gains 1. And you have a 5-power creature. I mean, that's not bad. Gravid Cycle this is an interesting one. So it's an action. It has a bonus amber and it has Omega, and it says play return a card from your discard pile to your hand. So this one, because it has Omega, you don't have to think about, oh, I need to put an Untamed card in my hand so that I can play it out this turn and not clog my hand. No, that's not an option. You're going to play this last, and you probably want to grab a card that you want to use on your next turn. The interesting thing about that is you're really telegraphing to your opponent, hey, next turn I'm planning on playing Dees, right? And I just returned an unlocked gateway to my hand. Guess what I'm going to do? I don't know. There's, you are telegraphing in a certain sense, but if you're getting a really powerful card, that's fine. Yeah, because it's Omega, that ends your step 3 when you play it. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting card. I think it pushes you into interesting play. So I love this. I think it's great design because it pushes the player into more interesting play through that constraint. That's pretty cool. Okay. And that's a new one. Heart of the Forest, also a new one. It's an artifact that gains you a bonus amber, and it says each player cannot forge keys while they have more forged keys than their opponent. So to be very specific, if you have 1 key and your opponent has 0 keys, you cannot forge your second key. If you have 2 keys and your opponent has 0 or 1 keys, you cannot forge your third key. So this slows the game down a ton. I was in a game recently playing against somebody who had this on the board. I was way ahead, and they had their first key. I had my second key, and I was ready to forge my third key. And he's just like, well, I guess I can kind of wait this out and look for an out, which is fine. That's a reasonable way to play. Now, if the game had gone to time, I would win right away because he would only forge his second key. I would forge my third. Plus, I had way more amber. So he couldn't win by like manipulating time or something like that. His actual best option was to try to play quickly and look for an out. And I got a smudge on the board and was able to start pushing it back into his hand. And I also had Screaming Cave and Control the Weak. So first turn I push it back into his hand, control Screaming Cave. He says, well, I have to avoid losing, I have to go Untamed. So he goes Untamed, plays Heart of the Forest. I said, oh, okay. Dees, Snudge, push it back into your hand, Screaming Cave. Now, what I was looking for, I'm Screaming Cave looking for Control the Weak, because if I get Control the Weak, I can Snudge the Heart of the Forest, Control the Weak, win. And so he conceded at that point. He said, "Oh, okay, we're in a loop that ends with me losing, so I'll just concede right now." But anyway, interesting card, and this is probably, this and Grunt Buggy are probably the 2 top reasons why artifact control is important in AOA right now. Okay. This is a returning card. Inca is a 1-power beast. Inca the Spider. It's a 1-power beast with poison. So if you deal even a single damage to something, then that thing will die. It's interesting because this doesn't have skirmish. So you throw this into something and it'll kill that thing, but it'll also die. And when you play it and when you reap with it, you stun a creature. So there's actually there's some You can just reap with this, and you'd be very happy reaping with this every turn. But if your opponent has a big creature that you really need to deal with, okay, go ahead and hit it with that poison. So it's cool. Kindred Longshot is a new one. She's a 3 power human ranger, and she has elusive and skirmish. And when she reaps, you deal 2 damage to your creature. So if you need to kill something with 3 power, you can use that skirmish to get that done. You have 3 power with skirmish, so she'll survive. But if your opponent just has 2 power stuff, you can just reap and kill it. So that's a pretty nice effect. Lupo the Scarred is a 6 power beast with skirmish, who on play deals 2 damage to an enemy creature. This is just a big, strong creature that's annoying for your opponent to have on the board. I mean, it's very good board control. It's good when it comes out, and it's good when it's on the board. It's very good. Mighty Tiger is a 4 power beast with play deal 4 damage to an enemy creature. So this is less staying power, but more burst when it comes out. And that art is amazing. So there's that. Still in the Returning from Call the Archons run here. Perilous Wilds is an action with a bonus amber, and when you play it, you destroy each elusive creature. That's pretty powerful. You can hurt yourself with this too, but it is a very powerful effect. Next up, we have Piranha Monkeys, which is a 2 power beast that on play or reap deals 2 damage to each other creature. What? That's yours too. So just be careful with the Piranha Monkeys. They're crazy. Also back from Coda. Okay, new card here. Post Pixies. Post Pixies is a 1 power fairy with elusive. So easy to kill, except you have to fight it twice to do it. And Post Pixies says that amber stolen or captured from your pool is taken from the common supply instead. This can lead to some weird situations. I mean, on face value, it's just good. It's solidly good because it prevents your amber from being captured or stolen. And if your opponent captures, they're actually generating more amber for you, and that's crazy. If they steal, they're just gaining amber. If your opponent has, let's say, like like they play bait and switch. They have you have 2 amber, they have 0. They play bait and switch. They're actually going to gain 2, whereas normally they would have just stolen 1 from you and then had to stop. So there's some weird stuff that can happen, but generally speaking, this is just a nice card. Punctuated Equilibrium. Oh man, I can't even imagine. Sorry, this just popped in my head. If you have Post Pixies on the table and your opponent has a Cermeros out, you can reap, and you're effectively gaining extra amber because you reap, you gain the amber, your opponent captures it onto Cermeros, but they capture it from the common pool, so you just generated an extra amber that you're going to get when you kill Cermeros. That'd just be delightful. Okay, Punctuated Equilibrium is an action that says on play, and this is a new one. Each player discards their hand, then refills their hand as if it were the end of their turn. This means that effects that limit hand size or I guess chains would apply and then get dropped. If your opponent had a mother, that would be in effect. Screams, Howling Cave, yeah, would matter. Yeah, but this is great because let's say you have this and 3 other Untamed cards in your hand. You play the 3 other Untamed cards. You play this. You discard 2 cards. You draw 6. And you can keep playing. It's not Omega. So, boom, you can keep playing. Your opponent had to dump their hand and get a new one. It's great combo hate because you're messing with your opponent's ability to control what's in their hand. This is a really cool card. Yeah, I haven't seen this in a deck yet, but it is a very cool card, and I'm really excited about it. I'd love to open one of these. Quicksand, also new. That looks very dangerous. Quicksand is an action that has a bonus amber, and on play, it destroys the most powerful creature controlled by each player who does not control a ready untamed creature. Interesting there, it's worded in a way that is like looking forward to multiplayer, I guess. But so if you have a ready untamed creature, this will not affect you. Otherwise, you lose your most powerful creature. Roxador, also new, 4-power beast with skirmish, but it only deals 2 damage when fighting, but it stuns the attacked creature. That's pretty cool. The Untamed Shard is Shard of Life. Its action is to shuffle a card from your discard pile into your deck for each friendly shard rather. That's pretty strong. Like that's a pretty nice effect, especially if you have a lot of cards in your deck with strong play effects. Talega is a 3-power human witch who gains you an amber each time your opponent plays a creature. I mean, this is on the board. It's like, hey, you have to deal with this. And if you can get this out turn 1, then the chances are pretty high that they are going to have to spend a turn playing creatures so that they can deal with her like on their next turn. Yeah, it's pretty good. Old though, back from Coda. In fact, all the rest of the cards are returning from Coda. Common Cold is an action with a bonus amber, and when you play it, you deal 1 damage to each creature, and you may destroy all Mars creatures. So if you have Mars in your deck, you might decide not to do that. If it's just your opponent, then you might as well do it. Witch of the Wilds is a 4-power beast witch who gives you the ability on each turn in which Untamed is not your active house, you can play 1 Untamed card. Nice. This means you can Glimmer on your Bravnar turn. There's cool stuff that can come from this. So, and this is another great turn 1 play. Yeah, just great card. And one that, like, as if your opponent has one, you're like, I have to deal with this, but she's 4 power, so it's kind of annoying, and sometimes she gets left. World Tree is an artifact that exhausts to return a creature from your discard pile to the top of your deck. This is good. It's not amazing, but it's good and it's fun. So that's it. That's all the Untamed cards in Age of Ascension. I've been really enjoying playing with them. Untamed is not my favorite house, but if I can get some witch combos going, it's pretty fun. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and that you'll get out and forge some keys. Thanks.